Hello, Ms. Harris. Thank you for coming in. Hi, sorry we're a little late. My name is Dawn Abear, and I'm with Voters East of the Industrial Canal. So we just gonna get started because I know it's late. But I'd like you to give us your full name. What is your profession? How long you've been in that profession? And what seat you are seeking, including your ballot number.
Okay.
Okay.
Angel Harris. I'm running for Criminal District Court Judge, Section L, and my number is 97. I am a civil rights attorney. I have been, I'm a former public defender, currently a civil rights attorney with an organization called the Justice Collaborative. And I have been practicing criminal law and civil rights law for 11 years now.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'd like to introduce you to our moderators. We have Donna Glapion and Brandon Gilmore, who is with You're Going to Feel Me podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hi, Ms. Harris, good night.
Night.
My first question is, why are you seeking to unseat the current judge?
My entire platform is based on reimagining our current criminal court system and reimagining a system that's based in rehabilitation and not mass incarceration. And I believe that my opponent, the current incumbent, is a part of the status quo and is a part of perpetuating a lot of the issues that are currently wrong with the criminal court system that I've seen since the beginning of my career that haven't changed. And so instead of waiting for change and trying to demand change, I believe that it was time for me to step up and really get into a position of power where I can actually start implementing the changes that I've been pushing for my entire career.
Thank you. My next question, what's your experience in criminal court? What diverse experience do you have in this area of law, and why do you think there should be a change in the division of this court?
So can you repeat the first part of the question?
What's your experience in criminal court? What diverse experience do you have in this area of law, and why do you think there should be a change in this division of court?
So my experience, I started out as a public defender in Orleans Parish. I also worked as a public defender in Calcasieu Parish. I did death penalty defense with the ACLU's Capital Punishment Project, and I worked for the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, where I did direct representation, appellate work, and also impact litigation. So my entire career has been based in criminal defense or criminal justice reform. And throughout my experiences, I have been able to witness the various injustices that come with our criminal court system. One being the disproportionate sentences that are being given to African Americans and people of color in our criminal court system. I've also witnessed the criminalization of poverty, and that's part of my platform, which is stopping the criminalization of poverty. I've seen individuals being treated very differently based on their socioeconomic status or based on their race. And I think that it's time for us to stop that, and there shouldn't be different systems based on where you come from or how much money you have. I also believe that we should be seeking alternatives to incarceration. Not saying that people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions, but there are people who are entering into our court system that are dealing with mental health issues, that are dealing with drug addiction, but they're not getting treatment for those issues.
Thank you. And my last question before I turn it over to Ms. Glapion. How do you feel about Black Lives Matter? And what is your opinion in reference to Black Lives Matter?
So as a person who formerly worked for the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, my entire career has also been based in a racial analysis, and I believe in racial justice. So the movement as a whole, I believe that it is very important for us to acknowledge the humanity of Black lives, because history has shown us that that humanity has been stripped away from African Americans, and particularly in our criminal court system, we have seen African Americans being treated in a less than humane fashion. And also when we look at the prison system in general, we have seen the disparities, and sometimes the prison system can be reflective of slavery. When you think of Angola, for example, and also I've worked in Mississippi, where there's parchment. Those are former plantations. And so I think that our criminal court system is based and rooted in a history of slavery, and that's something that we cannot ignore.
Thank you so much. Donna?
Good evening, Ms.
Good evening.
Harris. I have a few questions for you. My first question is, tell us how you're different from your opponent, and then tell us what your plans would be for your first 100 days on the bench.
Okay. I am very different from my opponent. One, my career is very different from my opponent. As I've stated, my career has been in criminal defense and criminal justice reform the entire time that I have been practicing law. I am also different because I have worked directly with individuals and directly impacted communities and have been of assistance with them, not only in direct representation, but also in helping them be empowered and to demand change from elected officials. And that's something that I take pride in. I also have an analysis around trauma-informed practices. And I think that that's something that judges need, particularly in the criminal court system, and also when we're talking specifically about the criminal court system in Orleans Parish, because there is a lot of trauma as a result of Hurricane Katrina and other aspects that aren't being dealt with as a whole in the criminal court system. Those factors aren't being brought into consideration when individuals are being sentenced or when they're being brought into the courtroom. And so that is something that I bring. I also bring, I'm a trainer in implicit bias, and I train judges, I train practitioners. And so one of the things that I would bring to the court is that analysis around implicit bias and making sure that implicit bias doesn't come into the courtroom and that everyone who enters into the courtroom has equal access to justice. And that transitions into the follow-up question about what I would do in the first 100 days. One, just really setting a tone in the courtroom, a tone of respect, a tone of dignity for everyone who enters the courtroom, not just defendants, but also the victims. I have to review the current docket that's going on in the court and see if there are individuals who, particularly if in the first 100 days we are still dealing with COVID-19, I would want to look at the docket and see if there are ways that we can relieve the prison population in order to control COVID-19. So it depends on where we are with COVID, what my plans would be in the first 100 days, because that would absolutely be a priority for me. If we have things under control with COVID-19, I would want to really establish and affirm specialty courts, drug courts, mental health courts. Those are things that I would want to continue when I'm on the bench, and making sure that people who should be in those programs are in those programs.
Thank you for that response. My next question, when it comes to preventing deadly force by police, do you agree or disagree that law enforcement agencies should be federally regulated versus allowing states the discretion when it comes specifically to statutes regarding stand your ground and no knock warrant laws?
I think when it comes to police violence, I think sometimes it's often better for the federal government to be the governing party, because you have a lot of conflicts of interest when you are working on a local or a state level. We've seen in the past, and some of the work that I've actually done when I was at the NAACP was police accountability work. And one of the problems that we came into was because of the relationships between police officers and district attorneys' offices, it was often hard for the district attorney's office to hold those officers accountable. And so when we're also thinking about lawmakers and the relationships that local lawmakers may have with law enforcement, it does create or can create a conflict of interest where we aren't holding police officers as accountable as we should be because of the local relationship. But I think the federal government is in a place where they can regulate that. But I do think that we should always demand accountability for police officers and any other position of power in our government. And I say that, I'm talking about judges, I'm talking about other elected officials as well. I think that we should demand accountability for people who are holding such important roles in our community, particularly when we're talking about the health and safety of the community.
Thank you for that response. Ms. Dawn, that is all of the questions that I have this evening.
Yeah, well, thank you. You have a couple more minutes. Would you like to say anything else? Some last statement?
I would just like to say that my platform, the three main tenets of my platform are equal access to justice, alternatives to incarceration, and stopping the criminalization of poverty. And I think if we really start focusing on or beginning with those three things, we can really come up with a better way of regulating our criminal court system. And I think that oftentimes we look at the simple answers, but what we are dealing with is a complex problem, and it's going to take more than the easy way out. So far, we have been going with the easy solution, and I think that it's time for us to really take a deeper analysis of how we are conducting our criminal court system. And that's the only way that we are going to have healthier and safer communities in New Orleans.
Okay, well, thank you so much for participating. You have my greatest respect running for office during this difficult time with COVID-19. So good luck in your campaign, and thank you for participating.